Alright, there's been a long debate on what weapon for heavy is best, and the two weapons we're going to be focused on is the Tomislav and the stock minigun. The two weapons both spew lots of damage and lots of bullets, but are uniquely different and both shine in different situations. The minigun is good for close range and the Tomislav is good for long range. Is what they're meant to be like, but today I'm going to go into depth about the two in specific and to settle this debate once and for all. In my opinion, these two weapons are amazing. They do a lot of damage each and they are both good in many situations. So why don't we look at them individually and see which one is better overall. Starting off with the stock minigun. The difference between the two is that the Tomislav has a tighter spread, quiet rev noise, and a 25% slower firing speed compared to stock. When calculating the DPS, we're going to be looking at the base damage to keep as many variables out as possible and to be the most accurate. So assuming all bullets connect with the target, the stock minigun will actually do 342.8 damage per second. Trust me, the math is right. It seems high to me, but according to the TF2 wiki, this is how much it does. At first it seems like a lot, but then I realized that's a big damn gun and it fires 4 bullets every 0.105 seconds. And its base damage is 9 damage per bullet. So doing the math, if it's 4 bullets every 0.105 seconds, multiply that by 9 and you get 36 damage every 0.105 seconds. Now divide 36 by 0.105 and you get 342.8 damage per second. This is just theoretical calculations, however. If we were to measure in empirical, meaning from observations, we could see that according to the wiki, at point blank it does somewhere between 475 to 513 DPS. At medium range, which is measured from the spawn door at 2-4 to the wall, then it does 48 to 285 DPS, and long range is 48 to 95 DPS, and this is measured from the ends of the battlements on 2-4. Again, this is assuming you can hit all of your shots. This is where the spread comes from. The minigun has a spread of 1 hammer unit every 25 hammer units in distance, meaning a bullet will deviate from its hit scan course 1 out of every 25 hammer units. Basically, every 16 hammer units is 1 foot, so according to the spread ratio, every 1.5 feet the bullets spread 1 hammer unit, and 1 hammer unit is equal to 1.905 centimeters. Some weird measurements, but yeah. In summary, a bullet needs to travel 1.5 feet to deviate 1.905 centimeters. So not that much, obviously, but again, at a distance that could become a problem. For both weapons, at least. We should start from 25 feet, 50 feet, and 75 feet to see how good they are at distance. And without doing any math, we can all assume that the Tomislav will destroy this competition, but can be hindered at closer range by the minigun. So at this point, the only thing that can make the minigun win is if it does a horrendous amount of damage at close range. Well, now that we have covered the minigun, why don't we talk about the Tomislav and then we can see which one is better at the end. So first, looking at the Tomislav, we can notice that it does have a lot less spread compared to the minigun and dominates at the longer range attacks. But let's quickly calculate the DPS theoretically and then go to empirically. Alright, so doing the math, each bullet does the same amount of damage, which is 9 damage per bullet. The difference is that it shoots 4 bullets every 0.12 seconds instead of the minigun's 0.105 seconds, so it takes a little longer to fire bullets. So, the theoretical DPS is 300 exactly, but according to the community testing it does around 400 to 450 at point blank, 400 to 300 DPS at medium range, and 40 to 150 DPS at longer range. Wait, do you see the comparisons? Come here, look at this. So, the minigun outshines the Tomislav at point blank, which we could probably infer by now. But notice how the Tomislav does more damage at medium to long range? Not by too much, but the longer the range, the more it will outshine the minigun. Let's look at the spread. The spread is every 35 hammer units it deviates 1. The minigun is 6 less than that, meaning it will deviate more. So it takes the Tomislav 6 more hammer units until it will deviate, which is 11.43 more centimeters it needs to travel. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but remember that 1 hammer unit of deviation is really, really small and won't really affect the outcome of your shot unless you're inaccurate in the first place. Also, I should mention that not taking into account any fall off because the stats I'm reading off from the wiki probably include that. My calculations don't include fall off because they involve the target being at point blank, and at that distance there shouldn't be any fall off. So now that we've analyzed the two weapons and their damage and whatnot, let's actually put that into play and see what would be better in most situations. But I should mention that the point blank damage doesn't matter past 450 because that's the most damage you need to kill any class, and 450 is an overhealed heavy. So for the Tomislav, it takes 1.5 seconds to take out a fully overhealed heavy, so therefore it takes less than or equal to 1.5 seconds of constant hits to kill any class in the game. The minigun takes 1.31 seconds to kill an overhealed heavy, so the minigun needs less than or equal to 1.31 seconds to kill any class in the game. The thing is, in my experience with heavy, you're almost never at point blank. You're always some distance away and will most likely experience some sort of deviation. Which is where the Tomislav shines better than the minigun. I don't want to find out how long it takes to kill an overhealed heavy from point blank to long range because you'll be bored and there isn't too much to gain because at long range the Tomislav will always hit more. And on top of that, I can no longer say if the gun hits all of the shots because at longer range, the bullets will deviate. So if there's any further math to be done to convey a point, the accuracy is going to be measured with if the crosshair is directly on the target. Cap to organize all of our thoughts. So the minigun will do a maximum without crits of 513 damage per second, and the Tomislav can do 450 damage per second. So the minigun does a lot more damage at point blank. But then over distance, the damage will be reduced and the Tomislav will shadow the minigun and any other ranges. If we were to really simplify the overall when is the best to use this weapon, we see that there are 3 ranges, point blank, medium, and long range, and the minigun does best at only one of those categories. So 1 out of 3 times it will do better, and the Tomislav will do better 2 out of the 3 times, which, well, I mean, I could do some simple math, but 2 out of the 3 is more than 1 out of 3. I mean, in conclusion, the Tomislav should do better most of the time, which I guess you could say it is better, because these 2 weapons on their own are essentially a side grade, and they have a micro difference between the 2, so saying one is better than the other is kind of useless, because yes, technically the Tomislav is better in most situations, but the minigun can also carry its weight, because if you walk around the corner of any of those weapons fully revved up, you're most likely going to die. I want to mention quickly that I didn't talk about the rev times of the 2 weapons and didn't include it in the DPS, but looking at them now, the wind-up times are different by 0.1 seconds. And doing the DPS to calculate involving the wind-up times would take the DPS down like a lot. It takes the minigun to 36-ish DPS and the Tomislav 51 DPS. So there is a difference between the 2 when it comes to winding up and firing. That's the thing, they both have their ups and downs and it doesn't hinder the overall outcome too much. So yes, the debate has been going on since the release of the Tomislav, but after conducting some basic math, you can kind of see how the Tomislav outshines the minigun in most situations. They do really well in many situations, but it appears that Tomislav is a more well-rounded weapon, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of controversy while doing this, but all I'm doing is saying what it says. Like, this is statistically what it tells me on the TF2 wiki. So, too bad for you if you're a heavy main bounded to your minigun and will fight to the nail to say it's better than the Tomislav. I hope this brought us closer to a conclusion about this argument, but if you want to let me know about your thoughts in the comments, just let me know. I'll be waiting for the controversy. Anyways, I could go more into depth about this conversation and maybe suggest some maps which would complement the guns, but maybe in a part 2 depending on how well this video does in the first place. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye bye.